sarebbe la negazione non affermativa di contatto ostruttivo. Ripeto, la negazione non affermativa di contatto ostruttivo. La negazione non affermativa è una negazione che non afferma nulla. Se io vi dico oggi non mangio, è una negazione affermativa o non affermativa? Oggi non mangio. Cosa afferma? Che un altro giorno mangerò. Ma se dico non mangio, è una negazione non affermativa. Lo spazio è una negazione non affermativa. Di che cosa? Di contatto ostruttivo. Quindi se c'è spazio vuol dire che non c'è ostruzione.
If there is space, it means there is no obstruction for a certain thing. If there is obstruction, there is no space.
Lo spazio è relativo.
Space is relative, but
I chili li posso portare dietro.
the kilos that I take on myself are quite absolute, to say. They used to be more relative, like in the first years that I used to travel in the 90s and so on. You know, many times that I could carry twice,
Niente, spiegavi cosa avevi in valigia e
and
dicevano
then at the check-in I would just say, yeah, no problem, it's okay.
avevi in valigia quanto?
So many times my luggage was weighing 40 or 50 kilos. No, nobody would tell me anything. Now this would be impossible. So I have a certain limitation for my luggage.
Cosa c'è?
So what what can I do
C'è spazio per
so that there is space for something? Then there shouldn't be obstruction. There should be something else that takes over the kilos.
non è una
And
questione di
here it's not a matter of
non posso portare.
I can't take enough. No, it's a matter of what are the priorities that I give. What is more important for me?
Cosa è più importante? Portare
What is more important? Taking the clothes, the books, liters of shampoo, the Parmesan cheese.
quando viaggi?
I remember journeys in Tibet that most of the luggage was food. And this is quite a classic, I agree. And often on trips with people from many countries, there will be like Dutch and Germans coming to Italians to ask for food, and friends also cooking pasta in the hotel boiler of the water. So the point is that I need to choose the priorities.
E cosa succede quando
And
non
what
riesci a
happens
scegliere?
when I can't choose the priority?
Succede
It
questo,
happens that
più forte
at
di
the
te.
end, something stronger than me chooses it for me. I try to take everything and then I get to at the check-in and then it doesn't go through, and at that point I need to take away on that moment certain things and just throw them away. At the same way, there is also the internal space.
Non so quante volte ti
I don't
sei
know how many
sentito
times you have felt in the anxiety and the incapacity of facing a situation as if there wouldn't be space for that. Someone will come and talk to you and you will say, ah, no, look, I can't.
una situazione
Or there is a
particolare,
particular situation, ah, no, me, that thing, no, really can't, because there is a feeling that there isn't space.
quello molto spesso è perché
That very often is because there is an obstruction,
quello spazio non è
and that
occupato.
obstruction
Per
is
esempio,
that space is occupied by something else. Also, meditating, trying to keep the mind still on a certain object. Very often that doesn't happen very easily because our mind is busy, is occupied with other things that are an obstruction for that mental state. So there isn't space for that state of peace, of concentration,
c'è un esempio
calmness. There is a way of saying, a sort of way of saying,
dei maestri
of,
Kadampa,
of the Kadampa masters coming from Atisha.
qui parliamo
So we're talking
dopo la medicina
is the one depicted
cinese,
on the right from
specifico
the 15th century. His disciples were called the
oggi esiste
Kadampa practitioners. Now there is their new school that comes from the same lineage.
e quindi
And so
una delle cose che
one
lui
of the
diceva
things
nella
that
sua parte
was there at the time, and there was fundamental part of the teachings, our lineage also comes from there, things that was said if you need to practice, if you want to practice well a spiritual path, you need to have
avere
few goals and few things to do,
voler poche cose.
wanting a few things, having a few um, why? When we have a lot to do, what happens is that most of the time is of our space is to take care of that. But it's interesting to see that.
Occupa spazio?
But it's important to see that it doesn't matter whether what we have to do is trivial or important, it takes space in the same way. This also recalls me a study that quite hit me. At Bagnano, we did this conference, and there was a doctor, a friend doctor, talking about studies and numbers, and explained these two factors about talking about cancer. And he explained that one of the most important causes of tumors is the the part of chronic inflammation, and the chronic inflammation then have the tendency to then become diseases such as tumors. What is the cause of chronic inflammation? It's chronic stress, because stress makes cortisol increase, and so when cortisol stays high for a certain prolonged time, then it causes inflammation. What? Why is cortisol high? Because of the necessity of making choices. When we are in front of a certain decision, naturally cortisol increases, creating tension, stress. Let's recall a feeling, the feeling of being in front of a choice, of a decision, also a trivial choice. For me, the example is being in front of the menu at the restaurant. Is it a feeling of relaxation or tension? Well, excellent. For many of us, going to the restaurant, okay, yeah, it's going to the restaurant is relaxing. I very much agree on that. But having to choose, the fact in itself of having to choose very often creates tension. Me personally, if I have the menu in front of me, one of the best moments at the lunch or a dinner at the restaurant is when you can take the menu away. So I made this way. But if I go at a restaurant and I found a dish that I like, you can know that most of the time or every time I will take the same thing. I am quite boring. So what happens is that when we find ourselves in a position of taking a choice, but even the most trivial choices, like should I put on the red or the blue dress? How should I? Is it cold or hot? How should I get dressed with the jacket or say or not say, go or not go, eat or not eat, do this or do that. I am the supermarket. I want to eat biological. There are 20 different types. Which one should I take? This one costs more, this one costs less. What should I do? I go online or at the shop. But look, if I go online, then there it's more cheap. But then I take part of something that I don't like, and so I go look for the other one. And every decision that we take generates stress. How many decisions do we take in a day? I don't remember the exact number, but we're talking of about something like 30,000, 50,000 decisions in a day on average. A normal average person. So to compare this with the grandparents, do we take more decisions or less? Much more. starting from important decisions, like what job should I do? Once you were born in the family of the shoemakers, you will be a shoemaker. You won't have to make too many problems about that. Now you have to choose the job, the study. I see these kids, and I'm sorry for them that they have to choose what job they would have to do. Not only like trying to see what they like, but first of all, okay, yes, if when I will finish the university, if that job will still exist, which seems trivial, but it's not at all. A little while ago, I was talking with a kid that wanted to start a dubbing school, and I asked myself, but in 10 years there will still be people who would do that job. There is a very high probability that with artificial intelligence, the dubbers will not be there anymore. Okay? So this is an example. Not only this, but we are faced with an enormous amount of choices. Things that used to be taken for granted, now they become a choice. So an important point, we started from an idea that, according to me, it's not wrong in itself, but we brought it to an extreme, which is the idea of that the freedom of choice takes more of happiness. So if I give you the freedom, then I'm doing something good for you. But let's tell the truth. How many of us want what is good for us? Would it be better if the food that one eats would be imposed? To say, okay, let's imagine that we live in a country where we 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 just prohibit the food that is unhealthy, and I assure you that a great part of what is sold at the supermarkets wouldn't be there anymore. So we're talking about like 80% of the Dutch supermarket products are super processed foods. I don't know here in Italy, but a high percentage, yeah. The quantity of sugars, fat, salt, and other things that are in there that are unhealthy is enormous. The the foolishness is that even when one knows, still has a hard time to apply it. And so I pose the question, what I want, is it necessarily what is good for me? No. I So this idea that we have, I don't want to go to the other extreme where one can't choose anything, but what I ask myself to put on my shoulders the fact that everything that I choose is good for me, which is, I don't know, have you ever seen a small child that you would ask, do you want this or that, or do you want to go or not go, do you want to put on this or that? When I was little, it wasn't like that. According to me, when you start asking a little child, what do you want, what do you want, what do you want? At the end, are you helping them or are you creating more stress to them? I think that you're creating more stress. But let's let's go back to us because I feel like we are getting late. What happens is that if my internal space is occupied with many decisions that I have to take, and decisions have these characteristics. When I open the necessity of taking a decision and I still haven't taken it, that space remains occupied. I don't know if this is clear. So I must choose where I should go to have vacation. Okay? I open that space, and until it's decided, it takes up a space within me. I must choose I don't know, the most trivial things. Which fridge should I buy? The color for the house. I must choose what to say at the party of that, what to do there. If choices are not taken entirely, then they still take up some space. When our space is occupied, like in the luggage, then eventually I have like reserved space for things that are still aren't there, and the luggage is empty, but I still can't put anything in there. And then what I need, I can't really bring, like my underpants, my soap, because it's occupied by many things that are there but not there. And so let's try to observe our internal space. How often and for how long is he occupied by things that are not even there anymore?
O no?
Is it a reflection?
Il nostro spazio interiore è molto
Our internal space is very precious, mainly if we have the awareness and the will of taking an internal path of growth. If we want a state more of more awareness, if we want to take a process of developing more love towards ourselves and towards the others, more compassion, generosity, patience, presence, gratitude, and so on. We must have space for this. Because when one feels that he doesn't have or she space within himself or herself, then he can't leave space for the other. When one is well with himself or herself and is relaxed and there is their internal sensation of space and there is someone else close by that needs something, you're much more open to helping the other to be there for the other. But when the space is filled for how much we can love the other, it's not gonna happen. And here there is an exercise which I think it's quite important to generate internal space, starting by removing from our luggage the things that are not necessary for this journey. What are the things that are not necessary? And here we can start by imagining that, okay, we have our luggage. The things that I have not in front of me, but that maybe I could bring, but I don't even know if I will be able to get them. Is it convenient to give already space for that when still I have other things to put in? Okay, so we don't leave space for ghosts in the luggage. The vacation is not yet there. Let's try. But the problem is that our system is made like that. When I have to make a decision, I open a space, a slot. And until I don't close it, it remains open. And so, also here the importance of taking a decision before without putting on the weight of, will it be the right decision? I think that the right decision doesn't exist. Is it the right decision? No. Is it the wrong decision? Also not. What do you mean? There is no decision that will make it so that everything will be alright. The same way a decision that will make it so that everything will go bad in a bad way. and one according to the resources that he or she has in a certain moment should take the decision. I choose to go to the sea, and then if it rains, I don't have the crystal ball. I can't know from here to 6 months if it's going to rain. If it rains, I would take a nice book. It's very nice. The rain on the sea is a nice sensation, also nice feeling. And here, open and close a parenthesis. I remember of a study, very funny, where they would give prizes. They would give away journeys, trips. And here would be three types of prizes. The first type was a trip, and you could choose during what part of the year you want to go and where would you want to go. You had 1 week with another person, all paid, and you had like 10 destinations where you could choose from, and you could choose the periods, the week of the year where you wanted to go. Second level was where the price where you could choose either where or when, like a part of the choice. You could choose the place or not when, or the other way around. And the third, this is the price. You can choose neither when or nor where. This week in this place. And then all those that will win then would have to fill in some forms to talk about their level of satisfaction to participate to this study. And the happiest people of, would be the ones that wouldn't be allowed to choose anything. Because if I go and and take on the trip that I chose, and then it rains. But look, I should have gone somewhere else. I chose the wrong week, and then if I am traveling with two people and who chooses the other, look, I told you shouldn't have been, and then you spend the whole vacation fighting, and so if look, we won a vacation, a trip. Wow, how beautiful, whether it rains or not. Finished, done. But our main tendency, if someone would ask you, look, I give you a trip as a present, which one of these three possibilities would you want? To choose it fully, to choose a part, or to not choose anything at all? What would we choose? We would want to choose everything. But what do we want? We want to feel well, or the trip here or there. And we feel better when, in these cases, we can't choose, because on top of the real experience, we put on expectations. If if we have to choose and we are two, and one likes the mountain and the other the sea, that's already a problem. If we can choose, and this period will be better for me, for you, we will be better for in that period. It creates already a certain tension. If there is no choice, we adapt simply, and if it ends there. And so what happens is that part of this our tension, of this internal space that is being taken, it's created by a ghost which takes up an internal space, and this ghost is our idealized image of how things should be. The idea that we have within ourselves of what, according to us, will happen, or how much time, how much space does this take within ourselves? A lot, does it? It's a bit like when someone comes to me and a bit like jokingly, look, Lama, I'm in a difficult situation. I can't spend the whole life like this. And what I answer, don't worry. it will either get better or worse. It will definitely not stay like this. If it gets worse, then enjoy now. Prepare yourself. If it gets better, then relax because it will get better. So don't make problems for yourself. But the point is that if I stay there and occupy my internal space with realities that are not there, and that probably won't even be there, a great part of my internal space is occupied but generating stress, tension. Have you ever had a fight with someone for a ghost? I don't mean like the ghost, the spirit. I mean something that doesn't exist. Look, if we had done, if we had gone, if that thing, something that doesn't exist. And one stays there and from discussions, wasting energy, and so it's important for us to give priorities where we put our energy, how we consume our lives, how we feel our space. So one of the first things to take away from the luggage is our ghosts. We breathe, we stay with the feet on the ground, we feel the present moment, we feel the body. What is there? This is there. How many possibilities are in front of me? Many. A lot. And in order to feel secure in front of all these possibilities, I I think I need to base myself on two factors. One is the trust in my own resources in facing the situations. So recognizing, okay, finding myself in front of a certain situation, I've done it other ways. I can do it also now. It will be maybe a bit difficult, but I can do it. And the other thing is that it's very relaxing, the certainty of the uncertainty. The certainty of the uncertainty is relaxing, according to me, because when I put myself in front of what can happen, how many things can actually happen if I start to elaborate and elucubrate and infinite possibilities. At this point, one just relaxes because this is worth as much as the others. And so I just relax. I do what it's in my possibilities to do. I put energy in my resources. I take the choices, make the choices at the best of my capacities, and I welcome the resources that I have, because I'm not omniscient, that I know everything. I don't have the capacity of doing things in the perfect way, that everything will go in the ideal way. And then, what if I do something wrong? What are the choices do I have? I don't know. The only way to not make mistakes is by not doing. We all, by doing things, some things go a bit better, some things go a bit worse. The important thing is that once I see that the path is not right, I don't insist on that. Because sometimes we insist on wrong roads for the pride of having taken the choice, and now I was saying that it's not right with all the effort that I've made until now. We need sincerity. Once I see that something is not working, I put energy somewhere else. Okay? There was, we would be talking about this in a chapter in his book, Harari, in a book called The Homo Deus. And a chapter was talking about this and was making an example of when, I don't remember in what country, if it was in Poland or more in the north of Europe, I don't remember. And they were building the parliament or something like that. some government building, and they started with um, estimation of the costs of like 30, let's say, and they realized that then it came at twice. And then they made a meeting. But look, we have already paid for 30. Okay, there is more 30. Then what do we do? Shall we go on? Yes. And then at a certain point, they getting to 60, they realized that in order to finish, 100 would be necessary. But we have already paid 60. What should we do? We stop here. Oh, since we have already made 60, we go to and and I think that from 30 they got like to 500 or something. And we're if if someone would have said immediately when they would have seen that 30 wouldn't be enough, and they would have said, okay, now it's 500, then I would just say it. No, I'm not gonna do it. So we have the tendency when we see a mistake, that when we are doing something that is not the right choice, we have a hard time to accept the mistake because it seems as if the resources that we have put in that direction, it's just thrown away. So I'd rather just go on this direction, waiting for something different to happen. I don't know if this is clear. And then eventually when I go on, I realize that I've thrown away even more resources. For example, like saying, I don't know, I've thrown away 10. Let's make an example. I've lost 100 euro playing, gambling. Look, a little money more, maybe 10, maybe I win something. In the book, he was making an example about religions, like very ancient, like thousands years ago, where one will go there and offer to the god of fertility um, an ox or a cow. And it was said that one of the mechanisms is that once you have taken something very precious and offered it to that god that you believe to, how can you not believe in the divinity, in the God, since you have spent so much for that? What am I, a fool that I've thrown away the ox and the cow and all of that? No, there needs to be something there. When I give my life for something, even if I realize that that is wrong, I have a hard time to say, to go back and realize that and just accept it. And we see this in the systems of government, in the history. You see it like in many situations, like wars. Many times it happened during the history that a war where where they understood that they couldn't win that war and that it would just be wrong to go on. But we have already lost so many lives. What do we tell to those that they have lost the children, that their death was in vain? No, so we just go on and kill more to say, to make it so that their death made some sense. But let's go back to us. When we see that something is not working, it would be important at least to take a pause, at least to stop for a while and take a moment of reflection. This is not working for us, things that is temporary. Where can I fix it? How can I do it? But it's important to do this. But together with this, where I see what's there in a way or the other, I must choose also my priorities and put my energy in the things that actually are nourishing me. Because at the end, what is the resource, the most precious resource that we have in our life, other than time, mind, internal space, joy? This is worth more than anything. This is what we always try to obtain. So I need to allow myself to be happy. I need to allow myself to give space to cultivate what makes me feel well. But that luggage, I need to put either something or something else. And then at a certain point I can make an upgrade and I can go from economic and business and then I can take more kilos. There are the times where also the luggage gets bigger, but as long until we haven't got there, then we need to manage the luggage that we have, the internal space that we have at that point. And here, few choices, few things. And also, the more things I have, the more I need to take care of those things. And so they take even more space. I have something, I need to take care of it, clean it, protect it. They take space in life. And so the question that I ask myself, what do I want to occupy my space with? Because it's limited. I want to occupy it with things that do me well, that help me to be well with myself and with the others. We live in a society where, since a while ago, I cannot tell how long, we we have we have put we have put given a lot of importance to pleasure, to sensory stimulation, to do what we like. When there is a very important part about being well, that it's not about doing what I like, but it's about sharing, being together, looking at each other in the eyes, being in nature. It does much more good to us, the moment of trust, than the moment of pleasure. From the chemical point of view, which is the main difference. Pleasure, what happens is that you have dopamine. Dopamine, what is the characteristic of dopamine? The highest is the peak of dopamine, the lowest is the dip. And dopamine has this characteristic: when you have it, naturally you will have the dip. If there wouldn't be the dip after the peak, then we would all be dead. You just eat once, and then how beautiful, you just stay in the pleasure of having eaten. But the fact that there is the pleasure, like of eating, and then it makes it so that when that pleasure is not there, it makes it so that you want to go look for more food. But if once you have a pleasure, then that would just stay there forever. Why would you do something to change it? So it has a function, but we abuse of that process. So what happens is that dopamine has that dynamic: pleasure and then falling. The sensation, the feeling of satisfaction is different from the feeling of pleasure. Can we recognize this difference? Thing is, when I go there and drink water, and I say how good, a really nice feeling, I want more. Another feeling is when I feel like I have enough. I feel good like this. It's interesting to see that this feeling of having enough is more connected to serotonin chemically, which is not obtained through the objects that we want to obtain, but much more through the process of sharing, of offering. The feeling that we have when we can share something and offer something to someone else, is it pleasurable or not? And it gives an internal feeling of fullness, and that is satisfaction. And, and, and then there is another important hormone, which is oxytocin, which is, for example, when like in the mother with the baby, Where does it come from? Why is it so pleasurable? One of the Why is it so pleasurable to have the dog or the cat? Because not the contact, not just human, but with another being of caressing, cuddling, looking at each other in the eyes. It releases oxytocin, which is related to a feeling of welcoming, well-being, but it's different from pleasure. Let's try to recognize within ourselves these three types: obtaining pleasure. So I buy something, I see something nice, I eat or drink something, I have a physical pleasure of whatever type, a strong thing. It's a strong thing and then just quickly goes away. It's not wrong in itself, it has just this characteristic. Let's try to recognize it in our memory. Then there is the feeling, for example, when we offer something to someone, when we help a person, there is a feeling of fullness. And that is another kind of feeling, more connected with serotonin, I think. And then there is the feeling when we are with someone with whom we have an exchange of affection, looking at each other in the eyes, touching, being in the presence of someone who has an attitude of affection, sharing that affection. It generates a different kind of pleasure, which is the main difference between the first and the others is that while the feeling of pleasure, the more I have pleasure, the more I need to increase the level of stimulation to maintain the feeling of pleasure. And the more the upper the higher I go, the lower I end up. This doesn't happen with the other two. When we are with someone that we like and we share a moment of affection and we separate from that person, is there like an immediate peak or like more like going away slowly? There is still like some pleasure remaining there. And the interesting thing is that these feelings, the more we nourish them, the more they can sustain themselves. And so, if we have to make an equation in our life or something like that in our life to feel well, which ones of these three would be the most important in percentage? The second and the third. Serotonin, oxytocin.
Ok? Però ogni cosa c'ha la sua funzione. Questi stati interiori nostri non vengono fuori dal nulla. Dipendono da interazioni.
These internal states don't come out of nowhere, they come out from interactions. So here is another side of the luggage, what are the things that I fill my life with? Is it more important to do what I want to do, when I want it or how I want it, or is it more important the connection with the other?
Per questo ci poniamo la domanda.
So we ask ourselves for this the question:
La soddisfazione, per esempio.
satisfaction, for example.
Se io voglio essere soddisfatto,
If I want to be satisfied,
però non so.
but I'm not.
La nostra tendenza è
Our tendency,
io non sono soddisfatto,
I am not satisfied,
quindi cosa
and
cerco
so I
trovare qualcosa
I
per
try to find
sentirmi
something
soddisfatto.
to feel satisfied.
Dico, ok, non ho
I say, okay, I don't have, I don't know,
cibo abbastanza,
enough food,
non ho
or
casa abbastanza,
the house is not nice enough, the clothes that I have are not nice enough, I don't have enough time with you, I am not satisfied. What is our tendency? To try to remain satisfied, to change house, buy more clothes, spend more time with the other person. We try to fill those holes, those slots. The interesting thing is that it doesn't work because the because satisfaction is not the result of obtaining the object of desire. Satisfaction doesn't come from getting what I want, but satisfaction comes from valorizing what I have. I repeat, satisfaction is not the result of obtaining what I want, but it's the result of valuing what I have.
Cosa determina se quello che ho è tanto o è poco?
What determines if what I have is enough or not enough? Is it an intrinsic characteristic or a value imputed based on a comparison? Do you spend a lot of time with me or a little time with me? For example, we at the company here, do we have much time or little time? Someone would say little because Albagnano, you are more there. And then there is someone from Brazil that maybe just has the opportunity once a year. So a lot of time or little time, is it something objective or is it subjective based on a comparison? It's subjective. What is the fundamental point? That if I see that what I have is not enough, I have a feeling of dissatisfaction, of lacking something. If I feel that what I have is a lot, I have a feeling of gratitude, abundance. If I feel that what I have is not enough, I look for the guilty of that feeling. And this is also the same with the feeling of abundance, and that this makes it so that I feel grateful. So what determines that if I have a lot or not enough, it's a value that is attributed based on a comparison. So satisfaction, which is one of the most important qualities for our well-being, in reality depends on does it depend on what I have or on the value attributed to that? And here someone could say, Lama, what I have is not enough. The difficulty that is in all of this, even if it's so clear that that is relative based on the imputed value. When we go and attribute a value on something, our perception is not that that is something attributed, but that it's something like an intrinsic value. Can we recognize this? For example, you get to know a person and you have an attraction towards that person. That person comes to you and smiles at you. Ah, for the whole day. Ah, she smiled at me. And then at a certain point, you manage to get more into contact, and you've talked. Ah, you've exchanged some words. How beautiful. Then at a certain point, he or she doesn't talk to you or smile to you anymore. And then you start to live together, and there is not enough time. But look, before we were happy of being together like half an hour a week. Now we are there together the whole time, and it's never enough. Why? Because the time that is there is not enough, or because of the value imputed. And the greatest foolishness is that what is the object of comparison? Is it real or imaginary? We trick ourselves because I compare that something should be in a certain way, that this, according to what in my imagination should be. Yes, it's true that you're nice and cute, but you're not like this and that, like how you could be, but you could be like that. Why? But because I can imagine you like that, and it would be better.
Alla fine ci freghiamo da soli.
And at the end, we trick ourselves. And so,
Non è che vedendo le dinamiche
it's not that by seeing the dynamics we can change them, but it's an important step. It's a bit like if you see someone that is stealing, imagine like you have a company, and at a certain point you see someone that works there that is stealing, but you can't stop that person. Also because if that person goes away, then the company doesn't run anymore, and you can't get that person. And there is a process then to make it so that either that he or she doesn't steal anymore, or to replace that person. And so there is a whole process from seeing, understanding, and to make it happen. When we see the unhealthy dynamics in ourselves, seeing that it's a fundamental process, the more clarity I have, slowly, I manage to act differently. But it's more than normal that once we see a dynamic that is not fine, we keep on doing that. And this is because there is a difference between understanding and doing. Something is our habits, another thing is our comprehension, and another thing about this that I want to repeat because I believe it's very important is that when I go and attribute a value on something based on a comparison, and often a comparison with an imaginary thing. A classical example is I see, look, we are not well together, look at the others, they are all well. And I realize that everyone looks normal from far away. From close up, nobody is normal. From looking from close, no family is normal. From far, you see the perfect couple and everything. But I don't know if you have ever compared your family or your couple to a family of someone else, the couple of someone else, as if that would be perfect. Look, they do that because here and there. But what we are comparing, is it a concrete, solid thing or an idealized image? It's an idealized image, so it's just an illusion. And the interesting thing to see is that when I go and attribute a meaning based on a comparison, often with something completely imaginary, in any case, I don't realize this, and the value still appears to me as being solid, autonomous, independent, objective. It's like that. I have little. You don't give me enough. This is not like that. This is not like this is like that. When in reality is relative. For example, there was a friend that suffered for like 3 years, and because he decided to buy a bank, that he wanted to buy a bank, he had some friends that bought some banks, and so he felt like the kid that was cut out of the group playing football. He suffered really a lot for that. And you say, look, there are those that suffer from not having food, and you suffer from not buying the bank. But I learned an important thing, that suffering is suffering. You can't compare it. When one is suffering for something that, for me, it's something silly, that suffering, is it real or not? Yeah, and it's suffering. It's concrete, real, as a feeling, as an experience. But we often suffer for ghosts. In Tibetan there is a bit more beautiful term for ghosts, which means the shadow of what has no form. It's like we see a shadow, but if we look on the other side, there is no form projecting the shadow, so there is just the shadows, the ghosts that we create. And the interesting thing is that dissatisfaction is a habit. To compare with something that I feel like it's not enough, or that I'm not good enough, what I have is not enough, it's a habit. How does it develop? Partly. We have an interesting tendency. We have not been educated, and the majority of us doesn't have the developed capacity, sorry if I put it this way, to understand himself or herself. And even more, we don't have neither the education and the formation, and the very well developed capacity to understand our own feelings, to understand what I'm feeling, where does it come from, what is happening inside of me. We don't have that clarity. So when we have an internal feeling, pleasurable or not pleasurable, our tendency is to look around us and ask ourselves, why do I feel this? I am feeling well. I make an example. Someone a few days ago told me, look, I I came back to this exact same place, but there are times that I came, I felt really well. This time I don't feel really well, and the only difference that I can find is that the other time I was in company with that person, and now I'm in company with another person, which is also nice and everything, but I don't feel well. Is it because I came with the wrong person? Yeah, what do I know? There is an there are infinite causes and conditions. Maybe you have the hormones upside down. I don't know. There are so many possibilities. But what happens? We have an internal feeling and we project the first thing that we manage to find around us. Okay? And so what happens is that if I find something upon which I can easily project, the more I project onto that thing, the more that thing takes the form of the guilty of that. And so I don't feel well is fault of the singing bell. I take the bell away, and the bowl away, and I feel a bit better. And every time that I don't feel well, whose fault is it? It's the bowl. Now I'm not even feeling bad, maybe, but there is the bowl, and so I believe that I'm not feeling well. I already know that tomorrow I won't feel well because there is the bowl. and we go on projecting. The more we go and project, the more we go and attribute that value based on a comparison, and the more also we apprehend that reality as something solid and independent. And even if originally it was born by a feeling that we didn't really know how we projected on that, slowly, when the feeling is not there anymore, that stays the guilty. And this happens both for the pleasurable feelings and for the feelings that are not pleasurable, for both. And so satisfaction, for example, dissatisfaction is projected on the basis of these dynamics, these habits that we create. The more I say that I don't like something, the more I say that something is not enough, that something shouldn't be in a certain way, the more that reality for me becomes solid. And the internal feeling of dissatisfaction, of victimizing oneself, grows. I am sure that here everyone can make their own considerations. And someone could say, look, Lama, but it's normal to do this. Yeah, I would say, yes, it's normal, but it's not healthy, it's not sane. Because living a sane way, actually, it's not the normality. It's anormal to be healthy, to have a mental and physical state and spiritual state that is sane. That is not the normality. And it's not because everyone is not saying that I should also be like that. There are, on many aspects, I would say, yeah, I wouldn't want to be like that, I'd rather be anormal. So the fundamental point is not being normal or abnormal. Is it sane or not sane? Does it do me well or not? Both for me and for the people around me, for the world in which I live, because not only we live our lives, but we also interact with the others and emanate to the others. And if I am satisfied, I emanate that to the others. If I am not satisfied, I emanate that to the others. I don't know if you can recall someone that when that person comes, you already know that that person will complain about something. I remember a scene. We were at a lunch, a birthday lunch, and what happened is that there was a person, in this case, everything was going alright, you know? Everyone was nice, getting a lot of presents, everything was really nice. There wasn't anything to say that that moment was not right. And I remember seeing this person there, and as long as the situation will go on, a certain tension will grow, growing, until it found finally something to complain about, and then that person relaxed. Why? Because when we have a habit, as long as we don't go back into that habit, it creates tension. It's like an addiction. We feel abstinence. If you observe, one of the national sports in Italy is to complain, to criticize. And who is a bit more intellectually developed, so to speak, tries to find more intellectual things to complain about or criticize. Because look, the system and this and that. Everyone finds something. And here I don't want to get into politics. I talk about complaining is a habit, because the opposite can be I have my ideas very clear. Can believe that a certain behavior is not right or right. I can have my clarity. But my question, going back to what we were saying before, what do I put in the luggage? Do I want to occupy my energy in pointing the finger to things about which I can't do enough? Or do I want to put my energy in taking part into something where want the world to go? For example, I am totally opposite to violence and war and aggressivity and so on. I profoundly believe that the only way possible for the common well-being is the way of respect, of altruism, love, compassion. I really believe that it's the only way possible. But if I go and make the list of the situations where decisions are made and behaviors are taken that are opposite to what I believe would be the best for the world, I could stay here hundreds of hours. And if we would want to put more emphasis, but at the end, my life is going on. So my question is, do I want to? I can't resolve anything, but I want to be part of the solution. So I know that there are situations that I don't agree with, but to me it doesn't change anything. I don't feel I am part of the solution in just pointing the finger and complaining. In a certain context, I can generate awareness, but I must firstly act in a coherence way with the world that I want to see. So, based on respect, gratitude, altruism, equanimity, and so on, I must act according to what I believe into. Because otherwise, I could stay here and spend my whole life complaining and pointing the finger to one or the other. As I'm talking about this, many examples are coming to my mind. But at the end, the life is getting consumed on that, and we just stay there still. And this is an healthy dynamic where I develop some kind of high ideals, but I put myself in the position of the victim, where everything that I do just doesn't change. And so, but if I see what is not right, and and I see what according to me it should be, and according to what my capacity I can do, and I put my energy with joy into that. For example, peace is something. It's something that needs to be developed, built by every person that lives in a certain context. There is a great incoherence if I stay there and criticize war and and violence and so on, and then in my daily life I act with aggressiveness, violence in my familiar context and social context. But I am not doing the war, eh? But the root is the same, because where does war come from? From selfishness, from the obsession with self-gratification, from the incapacity of seeing the other, from arrogance. And so I must try to act in a different way from what I don't want to be part with. And so what I'm saying with this, it's not that I am indifferent to the world, but I don't occupy my life with my energy, with what I can't. I try to put my energy on on what can grow, can be good, because we have limited energy, and no one of us has the where we can be part of the process of change, we can be part of the solution. And so going back to the question of the beginning, what do I want to fill my luggage with? And we can see that there are some things that we put in our luggage. One, because they are habits that we have created, and second, it's things that we haven't chosen, that we have been taught those things, they have been already placed there. I remember the first time that I did a summer camp when I was a kid. I went to this place, it was called Paio Grande, a mountain place, very beautiful. But I got there, I was very little, and I had like a bag that was as big as me, put it on my shoulders, and then I was looking into it. Why did I put these things inside of it? I, I couldn't understand the function of the towel for the hands. Why is there the towel for the hands when there is also the bigger towel? But we in our luggage, yeah, we can see that they just put some things into that from our education, habits that we live together with others, from the cultural context. Yeah, often it happens that they just throw something in the luggage that we didn't even realize. It's true that we open the luggage, but sometimes we just find stuff there that we don't even know where does it come from. So sometimes we need to make a sort of revision of what I'm bringing with myself. And I remember once I was in Borobudur with Lama Gangchen, and at a certain point he was there, and he had these big Tibetan bags. At a certain point I take his bag, and it was really incredibly heavy, and I take it, and then I get to the room, and then I I open it, and I tell him, okay, let me check what are you bringing, because we are taking this bag everywhere for you. And then at a certain point I open it, I had the intimacy to do it, and I find a pack like this of coins that really, and I remember the time that they were given as a present of this friend in Brazil. He had his piggy bank where he was putting the coins, and he will be giving them to Lama Kanchen when he will come there. And he got that as a present for like 1 year ago. So that had been there for like 1 year, that pack of coins. I don't know if he had a particular reason to bring that. Maybe with the weight of the bag, he remembered of that kid. It can be many reasons. Like for example, Lama Ganchen was always with the news on, like for hours, and sometimes I would get annoyed because I'll go to talk to him, and there will be the BBC, the CNN, and at a certain point I asked him, Rinpoche, why do you leave the news on all the time? Do you care so much? I mean, also the news, once you've listened to them, it's always the same going around. And he answered, I don't even know what they are saying so much. I don't understand what is going on. And why do you leave them on? Because I mainly see suffering. And when I see suffering, I use it as a bridge to connect with that people and to pray for them. And so it was a support of compassion, of prayer. So instead of visualizing the beings, I just see them there. So it really depends on 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 the how, on the what, but but still, doing a revision of the luggage, it's definitely good to do sometimes, because we can also find stuff that we put in there that was useful and that now is not useful anymore. An example, when we leave something like an intense feeling, it could be like some sadness or fear or anger, something like this, we somehow make a photography of ourselves, of that moment, and we identify ourselves with that, okay? And that emotion starts to occupy an important space in our life. I am that, I have that sadness. In the moment, at the point that we have put it there in the luggage, it had some sense because we were living in a certain situation, we didn't have the means to face it differently. Somehow we live that, but as time goes on, that stayed there in the luggage, but it doesn't have the function, that the same function anymore. So sometimes we must take things. Thanks for having your function, but now I don't need you anymore. I take it and I put it away. In other words, that feeling now is nothing but a memory of what was there, but that it's not there anymore, and that I don't need to identify myself with that anymore. I don't need to act and make decisions based on that. I can put it away. Thank you, but I don't need you. It's not so simple, but it's also not so difficult. And so when we find ourselves in certain situations, for example, and we experience certain emotions connected to the past, what happens really a lot is to recognize that it's just an emotional memory. It's not what is happening. It's a memory of something that has happened. I feel like we all have experience of this. I live something badly, the sound of the bowl, I feel bad in that way, and then when I find myself again in front of and I hear the sound of the bowl, actually I don't feel bad because of the sound, but of the memory of. But when I tell myself that that is not the sound, that is the memory, then I can relax. It's another ghost memory, something that was there, but it's not there anymore. And also taking onto this path, it's another thing. For this there are also psychologists, but what's important for us is to be less attached to things that we put into the luggage, and to have those moments where you can realize, okay, this thing I needed before, now I don't need it anymore. I don't know if you have ever had an experience of preparing some luggage, bringing a lot of stuff and not using even a third. Like me, for example, I have a strange habit, taking an enormous amount of socks, and then I always use the same. But for me, it's an enormous quantity. Then everything is relative. Actually, I would just need 2 pairs of socks. And this reminds me of a funny story which I haven't been recalling for some time. One of the people that most taught me in this life was one of my masters, Ken Lakpala. Lakpa means Mercury because of Wednesday. He was born on Wednesday, and so it was called Wednesday, basically. So, like on Tuesday there is Mars, there is and so it was born on Wednesday, and so it was Lakpa, and his religious name was Tenzin Wanka, and he was a person that really taught me a lot. And once I got to him after a journey, a trip that I did in Italy, and I wanted to give him a present. I couldn't really find like a lot to give to him, and eventually I found some socks. In India at the time, you couldn't really find the cotton good socks. You would just find like cheap synthetic materials where the foot sweats a lot, and so really bought him beautiful socks. And he used them a lot, and so I bought him 3 pairs of socks, something like that. I get there and I give him the socks as a present, all happily, and he looks at me and he asks me, and what do I do with this? And I say, again, look, uh, let's see if you can put it together. Shoes, feet, socks. Uh, and he says, but I already have 2 pairs of socks. And he showed me. One is the one in the shoes there, and the other one he lifted up where he was sitting on the bed, because traditionally in the Tibetan culture, the bed also becomes the sofa. Um, Having the bed always with the blanket all prepared is seen as actually as a bad sign, because it means that you're like probably sick, because indeed the bed has to function. And so usually one in the morning gets everything away and bends it and folds it. And so he was sitting there, and there was the carpet. Even if there would be 45 degrees in India, he would still have it, because in Tibet was there. And he lifts the carpet, and he says, "Okay, you see, there are the socks that are clean. Then I put this and I wash the others. I just need 2." I tried to explain him that his socks were old, that they didn't have the elastic anymore, so he was putting the sock and then he was using the elastic for the paper, because an experience that I had many times, and I understand the complexity. Some the the socks with the skirt, what happens is that they fall, and so you need a good elastic. And so it was putting the elastic for the paper, and I would go and tell him, "Ah, look, the elastic that you're using is not good for the circulation." And after I gave my whole explanation, these are synthetic and mine are not. And he looks at me and he tells me, "Oh, thank you for your present," and accepted it. And then a few days later, I saw others with the socks they had given with the present. And so his logic was, if I need 2 pairs of socks and I take a third, then I won't stop there. Because if I need just 2, but I believe to need 3, then I won't even need 3. Then I won't need 4, then not 5, and so I stay with the dissatisfaction. But if I can give value to what I need, and I'm happy to have what I need, then it's not because I don't want to accept your present, or because I want to suffer with the acrylic socks, because I have a feeling of fullness and I am well with what I have. And if I am well with this, why should I want more? Because I know my weakness, and the more I put, the more dissatisfaction I have. This is something to reflect on. And here there is a fundamental point on about distinguishing about what I need and what I want actually.
La stessa cosa, partiamo per il viaggio, se noi mettiamo in bagaglio veramente quello che ci serve a tutti gli effetti, il bagaglio diventa piccolino.
So I remember, for example, another time in Tibet, I had like a really big bag, and there was this other person with a really small one like this. And your luggage is, oh, look, it's just all here. Wow. Well, and there is what I need. You put on one and wash the other, and it's fine like that. And so I had the excuse of having these clothes that take up a lot of space, but being able to value what it's needed and being able to give little importance to what I want is a sign of maturity, because it's one of the things that are necessary for feeling well, for being more satisfied. And here comes also another problem. When we look at the whole environmental question, matter, I believe that one of the most important causes and fundamental of the environmental problems in which we live today is the incapacity of not being able to distinguish between what I want and what I need, and believing that I need to have what I want. And we consume a quantity of resources of nature, killing an enormous quantity of animals, destroying oceans, not because we have to, but because we need to satisfy our want. We all have to eat sushi, we all have to eat this and that, we all have to eat the avocado because we like it. Nothing against the sushi and avocado, but eating mango in Italy during winter, there is something wrong, also for health. And so, when you can also just think about clothes. The quantity of clothes that is produced each year. The other day I heard a number. I, it doesn't even matter how much coherent it is or not, but if the whole world of clothes production would stop to producing clothes, we would have clothes for everyone for at least like 10 years, changing often. If we would be like used to be like some time ago, then and just having what what someone needs, then we could go on for a really long time. So the problem, the matter of nature and consequently of climate, of biodiversity, which is even a much greater problem of climate. We are touched by the problem of climate because we feel it, that that there is heat, there is cold, it rains, but the biodiversity problem is even much more great than that, because the majority, and also the majority of us, is not even stopping to think about that for a second. Where does it come from? Why is the ocean losing its balance? What happens also if the ocean loses its balance? Half of the air that we breathe depends on that balance. Half of the oxygen of the planet. So if we breathe twice, one of those two times depends on the plankton. So really tiny plants that are in the ocean. And those microplants that are in the ocean, what do depend on? They depend on the poos of the fishes, because they go and fertilize them, mainly from whales, because whales travel a lot, and they, sorry to say it like this, they poop a lot and they fertilize a lot. And so an important part of the air that we breathe depends on the poops of the whales, but the food chain of whales is being destroyed because there is a balance in the ocean, and what we are doing in the ocean, we are kind of destroying that balance. The problem of biodiversity is a huge problem to which we are thinking little. I don't know. It's let's just think about how many types of vegetables exist, and how many that are produced are just not consumed. I heard something like one of the fruits that is in danger of extinction is banana. What are you talking about? I buy it every day because with the monocultures of bananas, what happened is that the biodiversity of bananas got completely lost. Before there would be many different varieties. Now there are not, and there are some diseases that when they start, all the trees just start dying, and so the biodiversity also helps to maintain. And all of this, what does it come from? Partly, at least, from our dissatisfaction, from wanting always to satisfy what I want and not what I need, from not doing that distinction well. Do I need it or do I want it? I don't want to create problems for anyone, but for example, Shantideva, the bodhisattva in the Bodhisattva Charavatara, at a certain point, for talking about the non-attachment to the body, he started talking about the dirty, the unclean nature of the body. The body, is it a clean or a dirty thing? Well, we usually say clean. But what happens? What happens if you don't wash it, and it starts to smell things and so on? Anyway, at a certain point, also for non-attachment to the body, it described as a bag of excrements covered by skin. But beyond these examples that were given by Shantideva for a certain reason, we normally wash. But once we stop washing, part of the process that we part of the things that we use to wash are the soaps, shampoos, and everything. And that stuff, once it's finished, where does it go? In the water. What does it happen in the water? That substance. First of all, what am I putting in the water? Part of what it's in those products is petrol. And so then that water goes in the depuration points. And what does it happen there? And so we also see that also in the shower, we are part of an unhealthy chain. So what can I do there also? Okay, I can use some products that don't have in them things that are polluting. But they are more expensive. I can afford them. Yes or no. But the other has better hair with that other product. So I like more the smell of the other one. Yeah, but what is more important for you? Is it so? It's the fact of starting to see and asking oneself, what is more important, the interaction that I have with the world, and of what I am part of the problem or of the solution, or whether I like it or not like it, and whether it satisfies my desire or not. Now I made a small example, but also washing the clothes. For example, when I have my clothes washed and a lot of soap is used, I feel like I need to wash them again because it's smelling badly. And for example, so I found like this bowl that they sell, and there is like a mineral inside that changes the pH of the water, and you don't need the soap anymore, and it gets clean. And you need to change the bowl after a while, but there are some alternatives. But we need to be careful of not falling in the trap of the minimum effort and maximum result.
Perciò, cosa metto in valigia? Nei miei pensieri?
So what do I put in my luggage, in my thoughts, in my choices? We're talking mainly not just the luggage as what I do in my life, in the relationship with the other, but mainly we think about the luggage of our mind. So what do I put there? And let's remind ourselves there are things there that are kind of like rusty, deep habits, and we must start to not nourish them anymore. And okay, this I don't want. And there is the habit of complaining, of criticizing, of saying that what I have is not enough, that what I am is not good enough. And I repeat, is a habit, first of all. Me, for example, I recognized in myself that there are some moments where I don't feel too well. There are some moments where maybe there is a day in which, like for example, in Brazil, there were 2 or 3 days, particularly where I wouldn't just feel well. There was like a sort of tension, something different from what I usually feel like. But for me, the key is to understand, okay, why? Then I talked with a doctor. There is an enormous. You need vitamins. You're missing vitamins, and then I took them, and I just felt better. But what happened is I could have just in that moment starting to look around me. Why do I feel like this? Whose fault is it? And in 2 seconds, I would have many people guilty.
Se mi lascio andare, volendo, c'ho una mente estremamente critica.
If I let myself go, I can have a very criticizing mind, like this is not fine, that is not fine. But luckily, that is compensated by the fact that I welcome everything in the interdependence of how it is. But if I let myself go in that sense, then I realize how much I will be perfectionist. Like for example, when I made this wall here,
Di cose che anche quelli che hanno stampato ma proprio deve essere così.
yeah, also the people that printed them, they was, but does it really have to be? Does it really have to be like that? Yes, there are some things that you don't see and you will never see, but there are infinite hours on that. Like for example, you see that around, it goes around. Um, that's a drawing with the lotus flower and the mantra going around the gompa. This I other than okay, I had to put it like in a vectorial format, the mantra, and it would take a long time. I stayed there the whole night,
Sono venuto qua, sono arrivato qua alle 7 del mattino.
and
Tutte le misure erano date come funzionava. Perché?
and then I took the wrong measures,
Trovavi un angolo di 90 gradi, no?
because from here you would think that the wall has an angle of 90 degrees. No, you don't have one angle of 90 degrees. One is 87, one 92. And when you go to apply this drawing, if it's not perfect, if you start in a way and you go back, then it's just really, just really sucks. And so I came back and I took the measurements with laser from all the angles and rebuilt it all. And then I learned also that there is another tool they just put there and it tells you the perfect angle.
Quando l'abbiamo posato andava bene.
And so I made everything again. And this is to say, okay. And when I look and I know that there are the points that are wrong, I see them immediately. Uh, I realize to have a very precise, very perfectionist attitude. But if I let myself go on that, I really become so annoying with myself and with the others. Because of what I've learned is on what I can do best, I offer the best of myself. What doesn't depend on me, I respect the choices and the capacities of the others. And I also don't stay there and judge and criticize because it doesn't depend on me. But all of this is to say that it's important for us to maintain somehow a relaxed state where really we go and see, okay, this I want to take on with me, this I don't. And on one side, yes, I see what it's not right, but I also accept it. But our habits, we really must ask ourselves, what do we want to take on with us? Because there is something also with this luggage of our mind, because the more something stays there, the more difficult it's to get it out. And also the interesting thing is that as long as we don't upgrade it, it's like 23 kilos. It's that, just. And so what happens is that if I occupy a slot with something, I can't put other things there. I try to sit and meditate, and I try to give myself a space of calmness and presence. What comes to my mind? The object of desire, the object of aversion, the vacation where that I need to decide where to go. All those things that are taking up my space. And also, for example, when you make a retreat, a spiritual retreat, the retreat is made by also creating certain limits for having internal space. And so you create a context where you don't take basically any decision. The time slot is always the same. I don't need to ask myself where do I go, what do I do. I eat in a basic way what is there. During a retreat, I go and remove all the other decisions that theoretically I should do. I go simplify everything. And this creates an internal space so that I can meditate and do everything else. And so I ask myself of my life, what are the things that I want to take with me, that I want to give room to with gentleness, with joy, not with a sense of guilt. Ah, look, that thing shouldn't be there. Why is it there? Why am I so bad? Yes, it's there. It's rusty. Okay, I see it. Already seeing it is already quite a lot. Then you need time to remove it because it's a habit. And so this, removing the obstructions, we need to remove the obstruction from ourselves and create space for loving ourselves and the others, in order to have more awareness, more satisfaction, more wisdom. This is the room that we must create by removing the obstructions, something that takes up a space within us, that doesn't allow for it. And so this was quite a bit the concept that I wanted to bring to you today. Now we make the dedications. Let's just remember that everything that we see, everything that we hear, everything that we experience takes a bit of space. Then there is the reset of the night. Sometimes things go away with time, but they take also some time. So let's also choose what we want to see, what we want to hear, and what we want to occupy that space with.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Vagishwari Mum. Om Vagishwari Mum. Om Vagishwari Mum. Om Vagishwari Mum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Vajrapani Hum. Om Maritse Mama Soha. Om Maritse Mam Soha. Om Maritse Mam Soha. Om Maritse Mama Soha. Jetsu Lame Kutse Rapten Chi Namkar Trinle Chokchur Gepadang Losan Tempe Drume Sasumgi Drove Munsela Tatu Ne Gyur Chi Kyawakuntu Yandala Drame Cheki Pela Longche Ching Sada Lamge Yende Rapzone Dorje Change Kopa Nyur Toba Sho Nimo Dele Tsendele Nime Kuyan Delek Shing Ninsen Takto Delek Pe Kuncho Sumki Chingilo Kuncho Sumki Ngodrubutsol Kuncho Sumki Trashisho. All'alba o al tramonto, di notte o durante il giorno, possano i tre gioielli concederci le loro benedizioni, possano aiutarci ad ottenere tutte le realizzazioni e cospargere il sentiero della nostra vita. Segni di buon auspicio. Grazie a tutti.